We're here with the one and only Lita Ford. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Welcome to Melbourne again, first time in a long time.
Yes, definitely. I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah. How's Melbourne and Australia in general treating you at the moment?
We love it. We love it here. Our guitar player Mitch was just saying if he got stuck here and we couldn't get out of the country, that he would not be upset.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah.
It's cool. So everything's good? You're doing well? Everything's...
Yeah, everything's great. We have a great record out.
Yeah.
We were blessed last year with a really awesome tour with Def Leppard and Poison.
Yep.
And we have a book coming out and just a lot of great stuff. A live record coming out.
Oh, cool.
So we're really blessed.
Awesome. Sounds good. So after 15 years away from the music industry, what sort of was the kickstart for you to get back on the wagon, so to speak?
I missed it. I missed the heavy metal. I took 15 years off. I had 2 boys, and I just wanted to focus on being a mom.
Yep.
And now that the boys are a little bit older, I was able to turn my back and play rock and roll again.
Cool.
Just the music scene had changed too. When grunge kicked in.
Yeah.
And I think now it seems like it's changing again.
Yeah.
For me, for the better.
Yeah.
And now my music is more accepted in the music industry.
Yep. So what's your take then on the general, I guess, most of the radio stuff that gets played, most of the mainstream exposure stuff is all auto-tuned to the shithouse, and there's not really any genuine talent, in my opinion, on those albums, records, whatever you want to call them anymore.
Yeah.
So what's your take on that side of the progression of musical evolution to this point?
Yeah, it's very strange.
Yep.
I don't know what you call it, but it's, I spent some time in Miami, and the Miami music scene is very mechanical.
Yep.
It's not really, they're not really musicians or singers or whatever you want to call it. And I think that our younger generation that's coming up, our next generation, are singers and they're guitar players and they're drummers and they want to play real instruments. So I think, the music scene is changing for the better in that aspect.
Yep. Cool.
Yeah.
So about the album, Living Like A Runaway, in my opinion, it's one of your best pieces of work, one of your most honest and full-on pieces of work on a personal level. What was it like to create that album, and tell us what it was like to work with Gary Hoey?
Gary was an absolute godsend.
Yep.
We were looking for record producers, and I wanted somebody who was going to be able to wrap their head around Living Like a Runaway, the album. And there was a few record producers that were available at the time, and they were saying, we don't want to produce Lita. Lita's a dated artist. We don't want to do this record. And they didn't even hear the record. They didn't hear anything about what I wanted to do. So when I met Gary and I clicked. He was finishing sentences where I would start the sentence.
Cool.
It was almost like he was inside my head, and he understood everything that I was playing and him being a guitar player as well. We really gelled on that level. So I started writing with Gary. He offered me his studio, and I took him up on it.
About a year all up, didn't you, doing that?
It was a year. 1 year we spent writing and recording that album. I lived in Florida, and he lived in New Hampshire, which is about a 3-4 hour plane flight. So I would go home, back to Florida, write something, and then get on a plane, fly back up to Gary's house, and we would record 4 or 5 days. And everything we recorded, we kept. So this album is actually, it's not something we sat there and went over and over and over, because you lose the feel after you do that. So we kept the original versions of the lead vocals, the lead guitar. Everything is the original versions.
So it's
and we
almost
tried
like going
not
back to tape
to
in a
double
way.
it. Yeah.
which is really cool. It's a good approach. I like that sort of mentality towards going into an album.
We didn't cut and paste.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't do any of that because it takes away from the feel.
Yep.
When you start cutting and pasting, it becomes mechanical.
Yep.
Which is exactly what it is
Yep.
mechanical, you know, computerized music,
Yeah.
which is what we didn't want.
Yeah.
So he made me sing every little detail on that
Awesome.
record.
So I take it that was a bit more of a push than what you were used to in the past experiences, or?
No, not really.
Yep.
Mike Chapman was the pusher, I guess you could say.
Yep.
He really made me play things over and over and over and over to the point where it does start to lose. It starts to lose its feel.
Yeah.
You know, it's almost like having sex for the first time.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
there's something magical about
Yeah.
that first time.
Yeah.
And it is so on a record as well as the first time you write something or sing it for the first time when you actually nail it.
Yeah.
And you're like, wow, I did it.
Yeah.
That's it. That's
Yeah.
the magic.
Yeah.
And we were able to capture that on this record.
Awesome. That's really cool. So you've said in a text interview with my co-host Shane that this is the most real album you've done so far. So how does it feel, obviously, to pull this one off, have it out there now after so long and all these sorts of things going on? How does it feel at this point in your career to have this one out there?
Well, it feels great to have this record out there because it is so real. But at the same time, it's, you know, here we are, 2013, and
Yep.
it's difficult to promote
Yeah.
the record because everything has changed so much.
Yep.
But I don't know, it's all right. It doesn't bother me. I think we'll
Yep.
get through.
Cool. Well, I think you've got a name that sort of stands the test of time anyway, so hopefully more people will, what we can do to help, hopefully, if anything at all, is going to get the name out there. We've already reviewed the album on the show and we both love it.
Awesome.
To bits, so it's a fantastic
Awesome.
stand-up album.
Yes.
So what's it like now to be back on the road again?
It feels great.
Yep.
It feels great to be back on the road. I asked my manager, Bobby, I said, Bobby, please don't give me any days off. I don't want any days off. I just want to keep working,
Yeah. Cool.
which we are.
Yeah. So what first inspired you to pick up the guitar, try and take on the world, go with the Runaways and all that sort of stuff at the beginning,
Oh,
and what
wow.
inspires you now?
What inspired me to pick up the guitar? Well, I started playing when I was 11.
Yeah.
And I really, I don't know why I started playing. I just wanted to be a guitar player.
Yep.
And when I was 13, my cousin took me to my first concert,
Yep.
which was Black Sabbath.
Oh, awesome. That's
And-
a way to start it off.
Oh, God, it was
Yeah.
like, yes, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
This is what I want to do. This is who I want to be.
Yep.
You know, I saw my whole life before me when I saw that Sabbath concert.
Awesome. So what about now in the modern day type thing? I know a lot of this album is reflective of your personal experiences over the last few years, but what
Yeah.
is that the main driving force, or are other forces behind it now that still inspire you to get up and keep going?
Oh, there's a lot of things that inspire me. The guitar playing on the record, for one, is, you know, the dual harmony
Yep.
guitar parts. I love that. The old the Judas Priest and the Scorpions.
Yep.
You know, they have those beautiful harmony guitar parts, and I think Living Like a Runaway has some of that on
Yep.
there,
Yep.
which doesn't really exist that much anymore.
No, it's fading out a little bit, but then some bands seem to come and do it again. There's a band we've got here in Melbourne called China Vagina, and they're bringing a lot of that sort of stuff back as well. So it seems to be going in that big cycle
Good.
thing again, which is always good for the
Yeah.
fans of the older school stuff more than the new school stuff.
Awesome.
So, yep. Cool.
Awesome.
I've read somewhere you've got a biography coming along.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how's that going? And
Yeah.
what sort of territory is that going to venture into?
Well, it's a slow process,
Yep.
but it's pretty much a slow process because we've been working a lot.
Yep.
You know, it's trying to find the time to really focus on doing a autobiography. But I eventually hope to make it into a major motion film.
Yep.
And on the way over to Australia, I watched the Margaret Thatcher movie.
Oh, okay, yep.
And that was inspiring for me because she was one of the only women that did what she did, being the Prime Minister of Great Britain. And to me, that was, I saw myself in that movie. And that's one thing we want to try to get across in the autobiography is my tackles and my battles as being a female in the rock industry and hurdles that I had to jump through and still am jumping through. Just being a female is,
so those prejudices haven't changed too much in the time? Or do you think there's more of an open-minded approach to that? Or where does that sort of sit now, do you think?
Well, you still have the old school, people out there that when there's a mistake, they all look at me. It's, I didn't do it, You still have the people that do that. Cool. So they're not all dead yet.
Yeah, okay. So you're just waiting for them to kick over and then it'll be all right again after that.
Yeah, right.
You must have had some really great highs and on the flip side some deep lows during the course of your career and your personal life in the business. What do you think has been your highest high and your lowest low to date?
My highest high, I don't think I've reached it yet.
Cool.
I think it's coming. And I can I can feel it, and obviously my lowest low would be losing my kids. I think they're coming back.
Okay, cool. That's a good thing.
I can feel in my heart that they will be back. But for that to happen where they've been taken away from me by their father. He's in another country. And it's not protected under the United States law.
Oh, okay. That makes it hard.
It's just you don't take babies away from their mom.
No.
You don't do that.
Not cool.
That's
at all.
my lowest low.
No. Easily.
Doesn't come any lower than that.
No, that's easy to understand. So, do you think the song Mother on the album has reached out to them at all? Do you know if they've even heard it? Or
I don't know.
Okay.
I know that if they don't hear it now, that they will in the future, because that is something that will never go away.
That's it, Awesome. Well, hopefully they hear it soon then for you, so, if they haven't already.
I hope so.
What advice do you have for bands now that are trying to come through the ranks and make it in this business?
Oh, boy. I would say just follow your heart. Don't let anybody steer you in a direction that you don't feel or see. You have a vision. You know where you're going. You know what path you want to go on. Don't let anybody steer you on a different path. Follow your heart.
Cool. It's pretty good advice.
Yeah.
Generally. Yeah. Awesome. What do you think is the biggest difference between working in the Runaways group to doing your own solo stuff now?
The Runaways were developing their own style, I think. We were young, and we weren't quite sure who we were. We were trying to be our idols. Which in my case, which was Ritchie Blackmore. I absolutely idolized Ritchie, and I wanted to play like him and be like him until all of a sudden I discovered that, hey, wait a minute, maybe I should just be Lita. It's a lot easier.
Pretty much.
So I think the Runaways were sort of a schooling, like going through college.
Cool. And then that's allowed you to progress into where you are.
And this difficult, and I think people need to be themselves and not try to be somebody they're not.
Big believer in that personally as well. So very, very good to hear someone with a more established reputation saying those things as well. I think that'll help a lot of people that watch things like this, which is good.
Absolutely. There's so many people out there that think they're Eddie Van Halen, or somebody like that, and I mean, nobody's Eddie Van Halen.
Except for Eddie Van Halen.
Except for Eddie Van Halen.
Yeah.
He's got the recipe.
Yeah.
He's not giving it to anybody.
It's like the Colonel's Secret Herbs and Spices. You can't tell we're in sync at all, can you?
No.
So, you're somewhat of a trailblazer throughout your career. What do you think, at the end of it all, you'd like to be most remembered for?
Wow. Well, I think I'm one of the first women in rock
Yep.
that plays guitar
Yep.
and does what I do in a man's world. And I'm not gay. I'm not. I've got a large following of younger generation, older generation,
Yep.
and male and female
Yep.
role models. So I don't know. I feel like when I left after I took my 15-year hiatus,
Yep.
I left a pair of shoes, and I use this terminology because it's easiest to understand and relate.
Yep.
But I left a pair of shoes sitting there unfilled. And it's almost like the Wizard of Oz story, where nobody fits in the red ruby slippers except that one person.
Yep.
And that person comes back and puts on those shoes, and they still fit, and they're still unfilled. And I feel like maybe I left a pair of shoes sitting there 15 years ago,
Yep.
and they're still sitting there. I come back 15 years later, and they're still sitting there unfilled. And they don't fit anybody but me. It's wild. I don't know why, but I just feel blessed that I'm that person.
Yeah.
I can go to my grave with that.
Yep. Awesome.
Yeah.
So what's next for you? You're doing a tour now, and then you mentioned about a live album and an autobiography. What's sort of the next plan of the near coming future for you?
We have a lot of shows booked. We have some shows in the U.S.
Yep.
We have some shows in Scandinavia. So hopefully we'll just keep touring and,
Yep.
and working on the book and the live album and
Awesome.
jamming, rocking out.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you very much for your time and the honesty with
Thank
your
you.
answers. Very much appreciate that. So.
My pleasure.